Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Techpeeps Diaspora. Today, we have on the show a senior software developer at a gaming company, and I'm really excited for this one. Let's welcome to the show Mubarak Awal.
Hey, yeah, I'm Mubarak Awal. I'm a senior software developer with a gaming company in Canada. I work remotely. This company is actually the leading live ops games developer in Canada right now. So I work with them remotely as a senior software developer. Yeah. So and I'm working from Ghana actually.
Yeah, so what does it feel to work at a first, like in the gaming industry, and also like working remotely from Ghana? How does that feel?
Yeah. So working in the gaming industry isn't the same as playing the games actually, because you are behind the scene. You are making sure the game is actually working, so um, and because it's a game and there are a lot of people playing almost every time, you are always like fixing live issues. For instance, the team I work on, actually lead the team that handles the game, basically the games being live. So I'm leading that team, and yeah, you also have to be like alert, working on live issues that are happening. Also making sure the game is always active. Whenever you connect to a server and you connect to a game and they tell you the server is down, it's usually our fault. So we have to make sure it's always running. Yeah. So yeah, and it's fun actually. It's really fun because you get to see how users enjoy the games that you build, the features you add to the games, the improvements you make, and yeah, it's actually fun working in the gaming company. And working from Ghana, it's a Canadian company, so the time zone, I think we are 4 hours ahead of them. So I actually start working around like 11 thereabout and then close late in the evening. So it gives me a lot of flexibility to do so many things in the morning. All personal stuff that I want to do, I get to do all those things in the morning, and then yeah, I jump onto work in the afternoon. So yeah, you have like that flexibility also to work from anywhere you want in Ghana. Actually, not just in Ghana, anywhere you want to work from in the world, so far as you are available when it's time for work, and you do what it needs to be done. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds really interesting. So usually on the show, what I like to do is for my guests to, dive into their stories, walk us through their backgrounds and all of that. Um, I mean, like for you, like it would feel like asking myself those questions that I already know. But I'll definitely, for the sake of our audience, maybe dive more into your story and the background. But I want to switch it up a bit. I, took set of questions from people like who are like also software engineers, like upcoming software engineers. Like these are questions that these people are interested to learn from your experience, right? So yeah, I got like loads of questions here, and I think mostly maybe we can start with this one. How did you get your foot in the door? Like as an upcoming software developer, were there like any particular projects that you did, or were there any particular things that you did that helped you first get your foot into the door as a professional software developer in a company?
Okay, so I came from a sales background and I went straight into software development. So I didn't have any computer science background. Um, yeah, so when I decided I wanted to do coding, it was, I think it was about 6 years ago. And I knew this is something I wanted to do, right? And that's at that point, the circle I had, I didn't know any developer. And there were so many soft skills that I didn't know as at then. I was very young, now growing up. So, but I knew this is something I wanted to do. So I spent about 8 months, you know, watching videos. Like, actually didn't even know Udemy existed then, so it was just YouTube. Like, watching videos, like so many YouTube videos, like reading a lot of articles, trying to find what to do. People were suggesting you to learn this programming language, learn this programming language. So that was all that I was doing. I remember I learned Python. I also wanted to start Ruby on Rails. I never got past the setup phase. There was this errors I couldn't even fix. So I just stuck to Python, and then yes, and about 8 months down the line, I realized that okay, I've actually learned a bit of Python, but I was like knowing ABCD and not knowing what to do with it. So that was when I actually met my first mentor, Richard, the CEO of GoTrain. And yeah, that's when things actually um, started moving fast for me, because he actually made me understand that I had to choose a career path. I had to become a web developer, a mobile developer, that kind of stuff, which I didn't know. And that's one of the most important phase in my growth as a software engineer, getting a mentor, right? That, and within like a few months after getting that mentorship, I actually built like my first full mobile application with the backend and everything working, everything wired up. And yeah, that's how I started my software developer career.
It's like really fascinating because you first of all you don't have a computer science degree, right? You don't have any
I
college
don't have any
degree.
degree. Yeah, I don't have any degree at
That's
all.
the first thing. And you also came from like a traditional background, no, a non-traditional background, right? You studied business in school, and
Yeah.
then decided, okay, coding was, I don't know what you had or what made you you know start coding in the first place, but you decided that this is something that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then after you got a mentor, you started building stuff. Like, were there any particular like projects that you built? You mentioned like you started developing like mobile applications, and I can imagine like starting then it would have been really challenging, right? But were there any specific projects that you built that made you feel like, okay, I catch? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get it. So yeah, so sorry. There are a few projects that I worked on that I know actually improved my coding skills and made me understand like most of the concepts I was learning really really good. I was focusing more on backend and mobile. I actually feel like I'm not a front end guy, so just backend, and I was using mobile to learn a little bit of front end. So with the backend, one project that I worked on, which sounds boring, but actually taught me a lot about backend development and most of the concepts that you need to know about databases and all that, was building an e-commerce website, right? It's also similar to a blog, building a blog, right? Now, in a blog, when you take a blog, we have like posts, we have comments, we have tags, we have categories. Being able to build just these sections alone exposes you to like the whole code process, relationship, like many to many, one to many, or like, and this relationship and like this code process and all that is like the foundation, the fundamentals you need for almost every single backend application you work on. So once you're able to work on like a full blog application with like tags and comments, where, and even you can even take it a step further and even add like an admin dashboard to manage like admins, and then also have like the blog side. Like just that project alone is going to teach you like so much about backend development in particular, and expose you to like most of the challenges that you're going to encounter when building um backend applications. And also, I actually suggest you to try it on your own first, because that's actually the first time I tried architecting a backend application. I actually remember very well. I had a book, and I was just trying to figure out how to like like how to map the databases. Like, I didn't know how it would work. It didn't make sense, because I knew, okay, how to have like this mapping to this mapping to this, but it just wasn't making sense to me. Yeah, and after some time, I finally figured it out, and I was able to work on the project. So yeah, it's a very simple project, but it teaches you a lot about the like, gives you all the basics you need to grow faster as a backend developer. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for me in terms of backend. In terms of mobile, I think it should basically be an app with like authentication and connecting to an API. So any simple app. It can also be a blog app, with like login, sign up, and also connecting to an API to get the blog feed and all that. Once able to consume APIs in your mobile applications, it becomes like something that you take with you almost like to every single job you go to, every project you work on. Because almost every project right now is connecting to an API out there, getting some data, sending some data. So yeah, that's actually something that you need to get very early on in your career to give you like a very strong foundation. Yeah, so those are the projects for me.
I think it's similar for myself. These things, cut across first about like first building something with the skills that you learn, right? So I think most people miss that. You learn different programming languages, you learn stuff, but you don't actually build things with the things that you learn, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
being able to build something with the skills that you learn exposes you to different challenges that you would otherwise not encounter when watching these YouTube videos and practicing, right? So I
100%.
think for me, that's also like something that's when starters do, it exposes them to challenges, and that prepares them like for the real job. Now, talking about the real job, you um became a teaching fellow at Cotrain, where you also train people to be software engineers. So obviously, like you've seen several people also start their careers and get their foot into the door as software engineers, and some of them have even grown to be mid-level engineers and senior software engineers. Like in your experience, what would you say is the difference between these levels, right? So someone gets a job as a junior dev. Like what are the changes? What are the differences between like someone being a junior dev and advancing to a mid-level dev and then to a senior dev? Like, are there any specific things that signify these things?
Okay, yeah. So in the industry, there are like a few like basic standards that people use to identify junior, mid, and then senior dev, which is basically the years of experience. So if someone doesn't know you, hasn't met you before, they will just use your years of experience to guess whether you're a senior, junior, or mid-level developer. I know there are those job posts out there asking for like 10 years experience for a junior developer. I know, like, that's not what I'm talking about, right? Um, so in the industry, senior developers are like 6 years plus. Some start from 5 years plus. Mid are from 3 years plus, and then junior is 1 to 2 years. That's if someone hasn't met you before. But it doesn't mean that you can be a senior developer after like 3 years or 4 years of learning to code. It doesn't mean you can be a mid after like 2 years of learning to code, right? So that's like industry standards. But when it comes to skill set and what is expected of you in a job as a junior developer, mid and senior. So let's take the junior developer. Um, when you join a company as a junior developer, you that the company makes provision for mentoring you, right? They know that okay, you are going to need a lot of mentoring, but not a lot of hand holding, because no company wants to hire someone that they are going to handhold throughout. But they know they would have to mentor you a lot. And you are going to ask a lot of questions. You are going to need plenty things clarified, and they expect you to be able to complete the tasks that you are given. You know, without hand holding you a lot, right? But then they expect that you're going to have a lot of questions, because you're a junior developer, you have to grow. So that is expected. Now, once you get to an intermediate level developer, the company expect that you start becoming self manageable, right? You should be able to manage yourself. You should be able to handle tasks that are given to you without needing a lot of help, right? And without needing people to like show you where to find stuff, So yeah, that's what I expect of you at an intermediate level, right? You should be able to take tasks, work on them without bothering a lot of people. And once you get to a senior level, now it goes beyond just you and the tasks you're working on. Now you should also be able to help other people in the company. So it's expected of you that okay, in as much as you're working on these tasks, working on most of the difficult tasks in the company, it's also expected of you to also help the junior and intermediate developers to also level up and get to your level as a senior developer. So you be like working a lot with intermediate and junior developers, helping them a lot. You know, most of them will be coming to you with technical decisions. You'd have to make them and all that. You'll be taking ownership to a lot, right? At a senior level. With all this being said, when you join a company first, they don't expect you to start exhibiting these traits going to the talking about the mid and the senior level. You are given a time to onboard. So a time where you can ask all the dumb questions to figure out where things are, because it's a new company, a new system, you don't know anything about it. So yeah, a time where you can be a junior developer basically to catch up with the company, know all their stuff, and then yeah, once you finish onboarding, then that's when you start being self-manageable and taking ownership and all that. Yeah. So yeah, that's like the distinction between these three roles.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. Like trying to link that to your own experience. I know that when you were first hired into your current company, you were brought on as a mid-level developer, and just within a few months you were promoted to senior level. Like, and it's like really fascinating, like when you hear about, because it takes people years, right? And for you it just took like a few months. Were there any, and I'm sure like there were other people that were hired just about the same time that you were hired, right? Who were also like mid-level but were not promoted. Were there any like specific things or actionable things that you did differently that got you like quickly promoted from a mid-level developer to like a senior developer?
Yeah, it's so I think one thing I did a lot was like I communicated a lot with my Scrum Master, basically the project manager, and also with my manager, but mostly with the Scrum manager. So with every single thing I worked on, I make sure like he knew where I was, what I was working on, where I was going next. And whenever there was a task that I knew was going to delay me, I'd make sure like he knew this was going to delay me. And also I asked for help a lot because it's like it was a new game, right? A new system that I hadn't even worked on before, like a Java framework I hadn't used before. Like it's a whole new setup that I hadn't even encountered before. So I needed a lot of time to on board to make sure I understood like everything, to even set up, um, learn how to use their VPNs and all those stuff. So there was a lot of learning there. And one other thing that I did was I boarded the other intermediate and senior devs there a lot, right? Whenever I was working on something, I made sure I searched for someone who had worked on it before and then hit the person up. If I was working in a file and I didn't understand anything, I'll just check the commit history, see who was the most recent person who made the commit in this file, hit the person up. So I actually boarded people a lot, right? And that's how come I got all the help I needed. But I even there were times where like I hit up some of the junior devs there. So there's one junior dev there. He does Unity. So and I actually haven't used Unity, until I joined BVG. So yeah, I actually hit him up when it comes to Unity stuff because I know that he has done Unity. So I just hit him up. So there's this Unity stuff I'm looking at, blah blah. I just send him the file. He just check it out, and then he lets me know what he thinks. Do you get it? So yeah, that's what I was doing mostly, like hitting people up, people that have experience in the thing I was looking at, and it helped me like work on so many like tasks. And coming from like my previous role, being understanding most of the things and how things worked for years, transitioning to a new company where I didn't understand anything about the system, I felt like I wasn't going really fast. So I think there was a time where I even messaged my project manager and I told him that, yeah, I know I'm not going as fast as expected, but I'm going to catch up. And he was like, no, what are you saying? Yeah, you're actually doing good, so yeah, don't worry about it. And I was like, okay. Yeah, so yeah, I actually put in a lot of work to make sure I understood the game, the systems, like how things were working. Yeah, and I think that's another thing that also helped me level up very fast, and I got and get promoted in like within those few months. Yeah.
Awesome. So, like comparing being a mid-level developer and a senior developer, obviously, like most of the tasks you are doing, you are still doing pretty much like similar tasks, but maybe with a few added responsibilities. Like, are there like any additional things apart from like the coding, right? That being a senior developer like you do, what are like the added responsibilities, and how does that check out for you in terms of work-life balance? Does it really affect like your work life balance in any way?
Okay. Yeah. So as when I was like at the intermediate level, it was like we have these things that we have to work on. I just take the task, I work on it, I make the pull request, get some reviews, and then it goes through QA. So that was it. I actually wasn't involved in most of the planning, but once I got promoted to a senior level, now I became a stakeholder in so many different projects. And I actually started leading the game ops team, like a team handling the game being active every time. So yeah, there was a lot of responsibility, like managing a team across the world, also being a stakeholder in so many projects, which means that you'd have to like you have to join so many meetings. Whenever we are discussing this, you have to jump on the meeting because you are the stakeholder, you are the tech guy. You have to understand the thing, help them scope it out. And also, one thing our team does is we build internal tools for the company, so things that we use internally. So sometimes there are tool suggestions and stuff that needs to come up, and since I'm kind of leading that team, I have to jump onto every meeting with that needs like developers to help assess things. So yeah, I got a lot of responsibility when I became a senior developer. And oh, and also, yeah, you get to work on some of the difficult challenges that the company is facing. Yeah, it's interesting, sometimes frustrating, but also interesting because with every difficult challenge you encounter, you get to learn more. Understand so many different things. Um, yeah, so moving from intermediate to senior is basically an increase in responsibility, but it doesn't change your work-life balance in the sense that everything is planned. Like you also have to be able to manage your time well, right? You know that okay, today I have like let's say 2 hours of meeting, the whole day, and I have like 6 hours left to work. So you just have to manage your time well to make sure you are you are doing the tasks that needs to be done, and also leading the team that you're supposed to lead. Oh, and also you also help your colleagues a lot, like which I was already doing that when I was intermediate, but as senior, you have to also continue. It's expected of you to do that as senior. since I'm already leading the team, I have to also be helping them a lot. Like, one good thing for me is that my team is mostly self manageable, so I don't really do a lot of work. In regard, I don't do a lot of hand holding, right? Because almost everyone in my team knows how to manage themselves. You know, they know how to work on tasks, and whenever they get stuck, they know how to ask for help and all that. And we help, everyone collaboratively. So yeah, that's how it is for me transitioning from intermediate to senior level.
I guess like the next thing, and which I think is also like very important for most people, is like the interviews, right? So we're talking about all these jobs, like getting jobs in these huge companies, like Canadian companies, German companies, like these global companies. What's the, generally, like what's the interviews like for these kind of like companies? Like what's like, as someone like starting, like how would I prepare for these interviews? What do I even know what to prepare for?
Yeah, so with the interviews, it's actually different for every company, and I actually group it into two. So we have like the FANG level company: Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, those guys. We have like the those companies, their level of interview. We have like the startups, the companies that are starting fresh, like young, very young companies. We have how their interview processes are, and the companies in between, how their interview processes are.
Mm,
So as a junior developer, the interview for junior is different from mid, which is different from senior. But one thing that cut across all is that you'd have to do some technical interview, coding interview, basically data structures and algorithms, and also you'd have to do behavioral. Where the company gets to know you, how you work, like personal stuff.
mm,
So those two are conk in these in all like tech interviews. But depending on the company, you can have multiple behavioral interviews, you can have multiple technical interviews. Now, when you get to the mid and senior level, they are added interview. For junior, we can expect just behavioral and then technical, and then you're okay. Sometimes they can give you a take-home project to work on. Also for mid and senior. But for mid and senior, there's an extra interview that you might have to do, which is a system design interview. So that is mostly about how you architecture systems, how you build systems, not even the coding part. Before you get into the coding, how do you know which hosting service to use? How do you know how many servers you are going to have? How do you know which database to use? Basically those decisions you have to make sure the system you are building is going to be able to sustain the users that you're expecting to have on the system. So yeah, that's the system design part, um, which is mostly for intermediate and senior. Senior compulsory, you are going to have system design. Intermediate, yeah, sometimes you get, sometimes you don't. You don't get. So that's the structure for the interviews, right?
mm,
Now, the difficulty of the interviews depend on which section of company you are going for. They are going for the new startups, the FANG level company, or the companies in between. Now, FANG level companies, the interviews are like they're crazy, honestly. I can tell you, yeah, like you really have to prepare a lot, like solve so many lead code questions, like make sure you understand the kind of questions they ask. You even have to know about like the behavioral style. They have things that they expect. Like it's crazy. So if you want to target a FANG level company, there's a whole preparation you have to do for that. If you want to go for like the startups and the companies in between, you can do like you can actually target FANG level preparation for even startups, and you know that okay, for sure when you go, you're going to pass whatever question they give you, right? um, so interviewing in tech is a skill on its own. So if you are in a company or if you are starting out, you know how to code, you know how to build applications and all that. Now interview is a whole different career path on its own that you'd have to embark on. You have to learn how to interview separately from how you work. Whatever stage you are at, if you decide that you want to move to a high paying company, you actually have to prepare for interviews for real. Like dedicate time, solve data structures questions, do behavioral preparations. If you are senior, do system design preparations. Before you start interviewing.
Yeah, I think one thing that you mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, was the fact that you said interviewing is a whole different skill on its own, and I think most people don't realize that, right? So people think that okay, when you know how to code and you are building things and you have a great like CV or portfolio, that's it. Like if I decide to look for a job today and I get an interview, I'm going to nail it because I know the stuff, right? But I think they don't realize that interviewing in itself is something that you need to learn, right? There are some specific things that recruiters are looking for or hiring managers are looking for, right? And that brings me to this question. So, what do you think? I mean, I'm sure you've been at like before you got this job, like you've had interviews with several companies, and maybe each company would expect something different. But in general, what do you think like hiring managers or like recruiters, are looking for in candidates?
Yeah. So like I said, and also you said, interviewing is a skill on its own. So there are certain things that you need to know to before you start interviewing. Now, first and foremost, you need to know the interview process, right? And like I mentioned, you have to prepare for behavioral data structures, which is a technical interview, and also system design if you're intermediate or senior. Let's take an ideal interview process, right? So let's say you apply to a company in Germany. So first stage, you have a call with the hiring manager. They basically want to confirm if you know how to speak English. They just ask a few questions just to confirm if you can speak English, because they are taking people from all around the world, right? And yeah, so that's like the first step. And then once you pass that stage, then you move on to the next stage, which can either be technical or behavioral, but usually technical. So you are given a coding test that you have to do. Sometimes two questions, you have like an hour to solve. Sometimes 1 hour, 30 minutes to solve those two questions. And based on how you do on those two questions, you get moved to the next stage, which is a behavioral itself. So that is usually like an hour interview. Depending on the company. Some companies can even do 2 hours behavioral, and you can meet just one person, or you can meet like three people in one call, all asking you questions about like how you work, where you came from, the experience you've had, basically getting to know you to make sure what you have on your CV is right. And if you're able to pass that stage, the next stage is basically the offer stage, where you meet the founders and stuff, and then they give you an offer. So that is like for the normal startup. If you're a senior developer, after after the technical, the DS, the next one will be a system design interview. So you'd have to prepare for system design, where you can be asked to design Netflix, design Google Drive, design something, and then it will be like 45 1 hour interview, where you get to talk to someone, and then you design that system. Yeah. So ideally, like, these are the steps that you'd go through in like the early startups and mid-level companies. Now, if you're targeting FANG like Facebook, Amazon, those guys, you can do about four technical interviews or three technical interviews, because you want to make sure, yeah, you really know what you are saying, So you can do like one coding test, another one like with other people on a call, and probably like system design, like it's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, so like that is like how the interview process is like. So if you know this, then you know what to prepare for, right? You know that, okay, I really know how to solve. I should know how to solve data structures questions. I should prepare a lot to know what to expect. Like, understand like my data structures, understand my algorithms, learn patterns that are used in solving data structures and algorithms. There are like courses out there that have these patterns, like um this Gogging the coding interview has like 20 coding patterns that once you go through like a course like this, you understand all those patterns. But before you go through a course like this, you have to take like a data structures and algorithm course itself, walking you through all the basic data structures and all the algorithms, and then yeah, solve a lot of questions. And once you have this covered, you can do behavioral. So you can research more on behavioral questions to expect, how to answer these questions. And you can even do mock interviews with a site like pram.com. You can have like mock interviews with other people that are also preparing for interview, right? Yeah, so you prepare for behavioral, and then, sorry, if you are a senior, you know that, okay, you have to prepare for system design, which you can also do on Pram, and you can read more on how to solve system design questions. You can watch YouTube videos and do more Pram, having mock interviews with other people who are also preparing for system design, so that you know how it's done. Now, once you've prepared, then you know that, okay, now I know all these things. Now I'm confident enough that when I go into a company, like, I'm going to get a job. Yeah. But just so you know, you might not. So I don't want to discourage you, but like, sometimes you don't always feel like you are confident enough to take an interview. Because you feel like, okay, I meet this question, I'm able to solve this, I'm not able to solve. But so far as you're able to solve a few questions, like, what's the worst thing that can come out of you taking an interview? Right? They reject you. That's the worst thing that can happen. They can't find you, they can't come to your house, right? So yeah, you can just like give it a try once you know that you've prepared enough, and then you can solve some of the questions that you see. So that's how a typical coding interview is like. That's why that's how I was saying that code. learning how to interview, passing coding interviews like a whole career path on its own. You know, yeah. And remember, whenever you want to change company to go for a bigger company, you have to go through all this process again. Like, yeah. So it's something that even some developers do it actively. Even if they are working, they keep on practicing coding interviews just so that whenever they are ready to change careers, they wouldn't have to spend a lot of time preparing.
Yeah, like all this seems like a lot of work, and to be honest, like I'm sure like there are a lot of people that maybe have tried this like several times, and at some point they're like, Charlie, yeah, this thing it looks like it's not happening, right? Like people sometimes people put in applications for so many jobs and they don't even get like they don't hear anything back, or like they get interviews and they do several interviews and they don't get any chance, like, and at some point maybe you feel like, oh, maybe I'm not just cut out for it, right? I'm sure you've gone through like similar experiences. Like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
did you do, like what did you do to jump over these hurdles, like when these things happen?
Yeah, so like one thing that I always have at the back of my mind is that it has been done before. Like I'm not the first person doing it. Someone has done it, and there's some content out there somewhere, a YouTube video out there, an article out there showing you how it was done, right? So whenever I'm doing something, I'm not getting the results that I need. If I don't have a mentor to guide me, I just go online, look for articles and videos on people that have done it. For instance, um, my first CV that I had was terrible, right? And from watching a few videos on software developer CVs, I realized that mine was like very terrible. So I took a whole course on building a CV for developers, and also writing cover letters, creating a very good LinkedIn profile, all that, right? Because I knew that okay, I need to get these things done, because oh yeah, you also need a very good LinkedIn presence, because recruiters are going to check your LinkedIn mostly. Like whenever you send them anything, first thing they do is to go and check your LinkedIn. Yeah, they are going to see like if what you have on your CV is really what you have on your LinkedIn, right? Yeah, so you also have to have like a very good like LinkedIn presence, everything up to date, and all that. Yeah, so yeah, so I took a course on all these things, and then that's when I built like my CV, the CV that helped me land this role. Yeah, so whenever you are doing something and you're not getting the results, you should always know that it has been done before. Like, you're not the first person trying it. Someone has done it out there. You can find an article, um, um, or a video. We can even ask you can even ask me if you know me. You can ask me. You can ask anyone that you know that has done it, and yeah, they'll definitely like help you overcome whatever challenge you're facing. Usually, it's just like a few things that you have to do, like something you have to remove, something you have to add, and then you are good to go. You know.
So like let's say you go through all this, and I'm sure like someone will have at the back of their mind, right? So if I'm going through all this stress, like is it really worth it? Like how much? Oh, well, I do know how much because I'm making it. Obviously, it's worth it because I'm in the job, right? But I mean, for people that are not really sure, right? Like, averagely, like, how much are like software developers making? Like on the average, like let's take a junior dev or a mid dev or a senior dev, like, just to put some inspiration out there.
Yeah, yeah. So it depends on where the company is located. Like that's one of the main factors that decides how much you earn. So let's say a company in let's pick a US company, right? In If you are working with a US company remotely, you can be earning, let's be a junior developer, right? You can be earning anywhere around. Well, I'm just going to dumb down the numbers a bit, just not to raise your hopes high. So maybe around like $40,000-50,000 a year, like as a junior developer. Um, and if you are at a mid level, you can be earning somewhere around like maybe up to like 80,000, like $90,000 a year, working remotely, right, from Ghana. If you are there, it's a whole different game. You get paid more. But since you are remotely from Ghana, around like $80,000 a year. If you are senior, well, you go up to like around like $100,000 a year. They're working with a US company. So it depends on which country the company is located. Yeah, but yeah, like I can assure you that it's worth it. Like so I have this friend that he's in Brazil working with like a top tech company, and he told me that yeah, from the way and if he comes to Ghana, he's going to live like a king. Yeah, so he's going to live like a king in Ghana. Yeah, so yeah, like I can assure you, it's worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember like one time you told me, when you got like your new job and you went home and you had to break the news to your folks, right? And you had to give them an idea of how much you are earning, but even that you had to like only mention like one fourth or one fifth of what you are earning, right? And even that they could not believe, they're like who would pay you that amount for just sitting behind the computer?
Yeah, like I kid you not. Like, yeah, when I told them, well, I knew that I didn't want to worry them a lot by giving them the full amount, so I just gave them like one fourth of the amount, and yeah, yeah. Even like from time to time, my dad calls me to ask me what job I'm doing. Like, yeah, ask me like, so what's the name of the job again? And I have to tell him. He's like, okay. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
as at those times, having conversation with other people, telling them about the job and things.
yeah. And it's really so hard to like explain to our folks like what we do. I'm like I can tell you now, like my mom still doesn't like know what's like he just tells people, oh, me no like, oh yeah, computer, wage, but like what?
Yeah, yeah. No, if you give them the full amounts, like you know how they are going to handle it. So you just have to manage them. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, but
like
it's
that's
worth it. Like it's well, honestly, it's worth it. Like yeah, like when I started working, I remember like when I earned my first salary, Zach, you were around, and I went to get a phone and all that. And I actually didn't want to get a phone. And then you told me that, "Child, next month anyone is coming." And I was like, yeah, true, yeah, and I got the phone. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
it's worth it. Yeah, that if you know like what you are getting. So let's say you are a mid-level developer applying for a company in Germany, because you are not in Germany and you are in Ghana. Let's say you can target around like, let's say, 50,000 euros. If you know that, okay, with all this effort I'm doing, I can get around 50,000 euros every year, which is like way a lot of money. If you split it into 12 or monthly, um, if you know that this is what I'm earning, and like if you do the calculations, we are going to realize that no, this is really worth it. Taking the fact that all you have to do is to like sit down for long hours, learn data structures, prepare for an interview, learn all the things you have to learn. You've actually learned a whole career by becoming a developer, right?
Mhm.
You've gone through that process before. So yeah, it wouldn't hurt to put in a little bit of effort to prepare for something that can help you showcase your skills to high paying employers, right?
Yeah, Charlie. This has been like a really interesting and also fun conversation. Unfortunately, like there isn't much time. This already running into like, but I didn't want to stop the conversation, and maybe it would be good to have like another session sometime. But thanks a lot for your time and agreeing to do this.
Yeah, thanks for having me too. Yeah, and I'd like to be on the show another time.
Yeah, obviously. All right.